Welcome to one of the coolest places I have ever had the opportunity to film. This is the Richardson Hotel in Buffalo, New York. It's a former mental asylum turned luxury hotel. And I'm actually filming this intro inside my room here, which is inside one of the old patient wings of the asylum, where all the guest rooms are now. So there's a very good chance that this room at one time was an actual hospital patient room. But this building in general was built in the Kirkbride style, which we can talk a little bit more about later, but just know that means it has an absolutely massive footprint. And I am incredibly excited to share this with you guys. But before we explore the inside a little bit, I want to take you outside first so you can get an idea of how massive and imposing this place is, but also give you an idea of how the place is laid out so that when we get back inside, you can have a better idea of where we are based on seeing how the place was laid out. So while we're outside, we'll talk a little bit about the history, kind of go over what the deal is with this place, what makes it unique. But yeah, without further ado, why don't we just hop on outside and get the show on the road? So this is the entrance to the hotel. And it's essentially the center point from which two wings that were patient wings come off it. So this is the middle part here. This wing would have been the men's ward or wing. This would have been the women's wing. So let's just start walking and taking a look. So the history of this place can date back to 1865 when a proposal was made to build a new, and I'm going to flip this around, a new mental hospital in New York to help with overcrowding. And what you're going to hear a lot in this story is what we've heard in so many other stories of other state-run mental institutions. In 1865, a proposal was made, went through all the bureaucracy, and Buffalo was chosen as the site for the hospital. And in 1871, construction began, and it was decided at the time that the new hospital would be built in a Kirkbride style. So Dr. Kirkbride was a forward-thinking psychiatrist at the time who designed a layout for mental institutions that were based on moral treatment and using the environment to help aid in the treatment of mental illness. And so one of the hallmarks of his design is essentially a central structure, which we just saw where the entrance is there. And then you had wings coming off it, but it wasn't just one long giant wing like we've seen with other structures. There would be these little sections here, and we can see this more. I'm going to try to get the drone up in the air later to really get a good shot of this, but there would be these little sections here, and they'd have connectors. You see these little connectors here, and there's one around the corner here, and they're on that side too, so they're staggered. They almost, we'll be able to see more of the connectors over here too, but they almost looks like a bat wing in a way. And the idea, oh, look at that little bunny. Anyway, the idea is you want to maximize patient exposure to the elements, to sunlight and to fresh air in order to help sort of move along the healing process. And so each of these wings would have a certain little segment, X number of feet long, and they'd have patient rooms in there, and then they would stagger the next one back. So if we look at this, it's hard to see through the fence here, but you can see how these stagger. But you have a patient wing, and then a connector here, and then another wing there, a connector, another wing out there, a connector, another wing out there. And so in this instance, there were 5 wings on each side. And when it was built, they were segregated by sex, which we've seen at other places before. So this would have been the women's area, like I mentioned, and the men's area would have been on the other side. Now, as you can tell, this is still not operational. So the hotel they are working, like we've seen with the other projects around town here, they're working in phases. And so they've only renovated one wing, the first immediate wing out from the central area on each side for the guest rooms. The foundation that is helping to restore this place has worked to stabilize the structures so that they're not getting any worse, so that when the time comes and the money becomes available, they'll be able to renovate them. And so I think they're planning on doing the museum next. And I actually didn't see, I went through a bunch of planning paperwork and I must have missed where it said where the sort of the grand plan is for all of these here. But when this was first opened in 1880, almost 10 years afterwards, it was 203 acres large, including this whole area back here, which is now the SUNY Buffalo State campus. But in 1871, when the design for the Kirkbride style was decided, they hired an architect by the name of Henry Hobson Richardson, which is who the hotel is named after, to actually design the hospital itself. And so he was given the guidelines of it needed to be in the Kirkbride style, but then he put his, I believe it's called Romanesque Revival, or it's now called Richardson Romanesque style onto it. But I believe all this is made out of red sandstone. It's sort of Gothic-esque in nature, but Richardson was the mastermind behind taking the Kirkbride plan and putting his own spin on it and making this amazingly massive, imposing building. But it doesn't end there, because they also brought in Frederick Olmsted, who designed several parks in New York, including Central Park in Manhattan, to design the landscape layout of the place. So they took this concept of sort of incorporating nature and the environment into the treatment plan to the extreme by not only implementing the Kirkbride style philosophy into the building itself, but by taking the rest of the place and actually landscaping it in a way that maximized this healing concept. And so a lot of this south lawn here has been overrun. At one point, a lot of it was flattened and a parking lot was put over top of it. And so I was reading earlier that only 3 trees, I think, left out of the 150 or 200 or so that were originally planted as part of Olmsted's plan. Only 3 still exist, and I think 2 of them are actually in front of the back door here. But look at this. I mean, how many places have we been to before and explored that look exactly like this and aren't actively being renovated? I mean, my room, I think, might be the next wing over, but it looks out, like we saw just a minute ago, onto one of these here. And so this would have been the south lawn that would have been purposefully landscaped and designed to maximize healing. And here's the thing, the story of this place mirrored the story, the trajectory of so many other places that we have seen. You know, start of the 19th century, late 1800s, early 1900s, they sort of shift to these state-run mental institutions because they think that they can better treat them that way. This place was originally called the Buffalo State Asylum for the Insane, but shortly thereafter changed to the Buffalo State Hospital. Through the first half of the century, the 1900s, populations increased. They expanded this campus and the footprint and all that. And then starting in the 50s, talked about all that. The philosophy started to change a little bit. treatment started to change in these giant imposing asylums, even these big ones here, like the ones that are built in this Kirkbride style to be more morally conscious, I guess, went out of style. And so they started closing up, and like we talked about with Kings Park, patients started being moved out. As they got moved out, the buildings, the use started becoming less and less and less until eventually in the 70s, I think 1974, the last patients were moved out and the place closed, at least as a hospital. I believe there were still admin offices that were used in the central part of the building, the two towers, until the 90s. But what's super cool about this is it's one of the only, there's a few other, but it's one of the only examples of a Kirkbride style asylum built like this. Here, now that we're around the corner a little bit. The Kirkbride style asylum like this, almost fully intact and being renovated and reused. I believe in the mid to late 1960s, they did demolish 2 or 3 of the wings of the men's unit on the other side here to build a new rehab center. But other than that, this is how it was in the 1800s. And normally, if you do find stuff like this, it'll be completely abandoned, it'll be falling apart, all of that. But this restoration really gives you a rare glimpse into what it was like, 125 years ago or more. It's really cool. So they're very symmetrical. So here's the central admin building again with the towers, the south lawn out here, which still has a little bit of stuff here that sort of hints at it being more than just a giant grass patch. Maybe we'll go over there and check that out. But what we saw here, out this way, is what we'll see on the other side too. And they have both these little pass-throughs, and so we actually came out right under here, right underneath one of these connectors. But I'm bringing up the fact that it has the same trajectory as so many of the other places for 2 reasons. Number one, let's see if I can get a cool shot here. It doesn't want to do it. There we go. Number one, so that I don't just rehash the same things over and over again every single video. But number 2, because despite that same overarching trajectory of rise and then slow decline until eventual closure, this place had no documented scandals. It had no documented overcrowding issues, nothing documented as far as abuse goes, which we've seen in so many other places like Penhurst and even at Spring Grove and in Springfield. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but it has no documented issues with that. And that's incredibly rare. We've seen with every one of these places just about that we've gone to, the story is they build a place, the space and the staffing can't keep up with the number of patients. They run into overcrowding issues, which turns into a whole thing as far as sort of giving people appropriate space. This is really nice. But they give people, or it creates an issue with space, and then there has to be some sort of either expose that comes out or something that sheds light on it. And we've heard that story numerous times before. Abuse of power also sort of goes hand in hand with that as well. This place, I think I mentioned at the beginning that 100+ acres of this was a farm, just like we saw in Kings Park, just like we saw in Springfield, that supported the hospital here. The difference is, Kings Park and in Springfield and in the others, it ended up being forced labor almost, where this occupational labor was good for mental health, but in practice it just sort of turned into, look at these buildings, just so cool. But in practice, it turned into free labor, slave labor almost. Here, to sort of contrast that, from everything I'm reading, and I obviously can't say for sure, but their labor and working on the farm was entirely voluntary. So it was encouraged because they, like the philosophy of the time stated, believed that occupational health and giving patients something to do with their minds and with their bodies would help treat mental illness. But in this case, it never turned into an issue. It never turned into abuse. It never turned into taking advantage of the patients. So it's just crazy. In every case where things have gone poorly, in other similar asylums, things went exactly the way they were supposed to here. And the building itself is still the whole, whatever, it's in restoration, like it's in good shape, I guess, too. So you've got places like Penhurst where like that place needs to be torn down just with all the horrendous stuff that happened there. And instead it's now being used as some Halloween amusement park, some insanely disrespectful purposes. But here, this building is available, it's being used, it's being renovated. I'm staying in a patient room and there's no sort of black marks on its record, at least nothing that ever came to light to sort of have you question, the ethical, whatever, nature of what you're doing. So I thought that they were saying that they were restoring some of the south lawn here, and maybe they have. Maybe this was actually a parking lot before. I'm not sure where the parking lot was. But this is now a larger campus that they call the Richardson Olmsted Complex. And it's got active mental health offices here surrounding the area. You'll see these purple signs here, and these giant buildings. The rehab building that we'll see in a minute was built in the 70s, I think. It's where they tore down a handful of, I think 2 or 3 of the wings of the men's unit here to build this rehab center. That's still active. There's a couple of active places sort of around back. But at the core of it is this former hospital that, it's just so cool. And I've actually known about this place since before the pandemic happened. So I'd been following it leading up to that, and I hadn't even really thought about starting a YouTube channel yet at that point, but I knew about it. I knew it was really cool, and then the pandemic happened, and they actually closed up shop for a while. And I got really discouraged because, you remember with all the COVID stuff, especially real niche things, really had a hard time coming back if they did ever at all. But they closed up shop for just a little bit, and I think they reopened in either 21 or 22, obviously, because I'm staying here. When we get inside, one of the things to remember is about these connectors here, because we can walk through a handful of those, and it just makes the whole concept that much more real. And there's even, when they were doing restorations, and we'll talk about it when we get inside, but when they were doing restorations, they were able to keep in one of the sections some of the original flooring from the 1800s. Now this is interesting. This rehab center here was built in the late 60s, early 70s, I believe, when they tore down. You can see where this ends right here. This would have been the connector for another wing, 2 or 3 wings that went out here, that they tore down to have this rehab center built. And I'm actually not sure when this new piece here was built. But look how cool that looks. Hopefully that's coming through on the camera. That's really cool looking. But I believe in 1880, when the first patients were admitted, this place wasn't totally built yet. they had just the majority of the women's wing done. And so the full thing with the men's wing and everything didn't get done until 1895, 1885, 1895. But at that point, Henry Hobson had died. And so the people that they got to do this did their best to create the remaining wings sort of in that style as best they could to mimic it. And I'm kind of wondering if that's what these are here. Okay, so see here now, we've almost come full circle. We've got the men's wing here. I've tried to take pictures all afternoon of this. I've tried to take different videos. I cannot get the imposingness of this structure to come through on camera to save my life. So you are just going to have to trust me that in person, this is intensely cool. But interestingly, they've named the wings where the guest rooms are. So they named this the Hobson wing, which is Henry Richardson's middle name. And then this wing over here, where the other set of rooms are and where the fitness center is, and I think there's a museum that's being started back over here. It's called the Olmsted wing, named after Frederick Olmsted, who landscaped everything. So what do you say? What do you say we go inside now, and I'll show you a little bit of it. I've purposefully not explored too much of it, and maybe I should have. I wanted to keep it kind of fresh, but maybe I should have figured out where I'm going a little bit ahead of time. So we are going to be exploring this together a little bit for the first time. So let's go do that. Does the moon come through? Where is it? Up here somewhere? Oh, that's really cool. Oh, and an airplane right there-ish. That moon being right in the middle. Can I zoom in? I don't know how this works. Yep. Okay, let's go inside and take a look. I mean, how many places? I know you've got the Kirkbride place in, I think it's in Traverse City in Michigan, that they've turned into like retail stores and stuff, but at least for people like me that are into this, what a cool opportunity to get to stay in a literal former psychiatric hospital patient room, which may be creepy to some people now that I say that, but all right, let's go check this out. And so one thing I do know, down here, you actually check in upstairs. So one thing I have seen
genuine and real, and it wasn't protocol just to meet certain standards, and there were a number of things.
It's a little museum, and normally there are lights on. I wonder if I came after hours. But this just goes over some of the history of the, oh, it's motion. This just goes over, but here, right, like before and after. How many times have we seen this in different places? To give you a little sneak peek, that's what they've turned it into. or this. It looked like this, and now it's this. I mean, literal former patient rooms now turned into guest rooms. Here's that backside that we saw by the south lawn. No, this is the front. Oh, they've even done more. Look at that. But yeah, I remember seeing, and actually here are those three guys. Oh, this is interesting. So here's what they look like. Kirkbride, Olmsted, who did the landscaping, and then Henry Richardson. Yeah, this is mainly just about the plan and stabilization and all of that, so. But you can see here the central buildings here, the central thing. This is the south lawn, I guess at some point, I don't know when, but you can see the women's wing goes out this way, the men's wing goes out this way. So, okay, let's go up. I'm staying in the old women's room. It's the west wing. Let's go to the east wing and check that out a little bit. There's something I was reading about over there that I want to see if I can find.
There's lots of really interesting ideas. I think we can do
So that is the staircase. I think this is named after somebody else too, but so you see you've got the Hobson wing, the Olmsted wing. So I'm in the Hobson wing, so let's go to the Olmsted wing because I think that's where the thing is that I want to check out. So if you remember, yep, cool, this is it. So this is one of the connectors. See, it connects obviously over to the first wing, but this floor, at least this tiling here, and possibly the whole thing, but I know at least that is original to the 1880s hospital. And then this, I saw something that said there was a non-original wall that was here, so when they tore it out, they noticed this stencil underneath it, and let me see if I can. It's not coming through very well, but there's a stencil on that that was likely original to the place. And so instead of tearing out all the walling and all of that or replacing it, they just plexiglassed over it. There's a little nod to some of the original stuff. And so once you see one of these hallways, they're all going to look fairly similar, but look at this. Gosh, I was going to call them patient rooms. I mean, they're former patient rooms. These are now guest rooms. Look how wide. Hopefully it comes across on camera. Look how wide these hallways are. How tall the ceilings are. So think about some of the different places that we have checked out. You can just see, like, you can superimpose those like decaying hallways that we've seen so many times before right on top of this. There's Niagara Falls. But yeah, then this would have been the old men's wing. And so there should be a connector right here that I'm guessing, not even guessing, it's going to be blocked off in some capacity. But I wonder how it's going to be blocked off. That's how it's blocked off. That's interesting. Oh, interesting. So they just have the connector walled off there. Oh, and the camera, I guess. So if anybody is like, what is somebody gonna do? Are they gonna like take a hammer to that wall? I mean, I guess better safe than sorry, but I don't know. I guess there are crazies out there that may do something like that, but yep. When I walked down here the first time, all I could do was see myself walking down one of the halls at like Crescent, for example, one of the Penhurst areas, one of the areas in Kings Park. All right, so let's see if we can get across bypassing the lobby. I don't think so. I have seen this design in pictures and diagrams for years. And being able to actually walk through one. Those cool connector things, I've just been sort of passively obsessed with them. Just so cool what they've done with all this space. I've been passively obsessed with those for a long time, and so actually getting to go down one is just so cool. Oh. Third floor ballroom. Well, let's go check out the ballroom. Where the heck is the ballroom? Oh, up here. Was it open? Oh, nice. What is a historic stair? Hobson. Yeah, let's go over here. Boy, you talk about getting lost. What is this? Elevators? Where the heck am I? Okay. Okay. So this is a fully carpeted version. But I am on the 3rd floor, so just go up there. Anyone else notice how these buttons are just to make us think that we're doing something? Wait, was I on the 3rd floor? That is hilariously embarrassing. So I was on the 3rd floor, went into the elevator, tried to go to the 3rd floor, just sat there for a while, and then realized I was already there. And then I am back over here. I mean, you can just see. Can't you just imagine this being one of the hospitals that we've seen? Then you can see out there SUNY Buffalo State's campus where the farm used to be. And then my room here. I mean, look. No, the camera's not going to be able to get it across, but look how high these ceilings are. So I'm a little over 6 feet, and I come up to about here or so. So that gives you an idea how high up that door is. And then now that the sun has gone down a little bit, you can probably see this a little bit better. But right outside my window, let's see if I can get this thing to focus. I'm just looking at one of those decayed places. All right, so now that we're back to where we started, I think we're going to call that about it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed this walkthrough of the hotel. I cannot tell you, I've been saying it over and over again, I'm just so excited to be here, to have this opportunity, to get to make a video on it, and get to explore the campus and get to see this firsthand. I mean, it's just so cool. So hopefully you agree. Maybe if you feel so inspired and feel like coming up to Buffalo sometime, you can check it out yourself. If you like this sort of thing, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button. If you want to see more like it, hit the subscribe button, hit that little bell next to it. It'll let you know when I upload next. Thanks to everyone for the continued support. And I guess until next time, I will see you in the next video. All right, bye. Oh, one thing I forgot to show you, the exit map here in the room even has one of the connectors here. I don't know. I just found that super cool. Even one of those cool connectors made it onto the exit map for arguably no reason. There's no reason to have this.